Well, I thought I'd show you where I'm at on this 35 Remington, kind of finishing it up. I got the front sight ramp in the mail today because that old one was boogered up, but the screws on this are a little long, so I have to shorten them because they bottom out in the barrel, but that's not a big thing. You know, when you start monkeying with sights, you always run into that sort of a nonsense. You know, it's like new production, so it's a little different, but the old one, remember, had punch marks. It was quite beat up. So, nice to have just a new one on there instead of that ratty looking one. So that'll go in. Just got to shorten these screws a little bit. And I got the stock old pine tard and the mag tube. Now this is still the original mag tube. And what I did, you know, I thought, well, I got nothing to lose. I took a file, you know, a fine file, knocked down those pliers marks. Now, you can't get rid of them altogether. You still have the divot, but I got rid of the part that was mushroomed up. And then I used some of this liquid bluing on them. Stuff works amazingly well. You know, the only thing, I saw there was a caution on here about using it on certain alloys, which evidently is those post 64 Winchesters, because man, I see a lot of them that people tried to re-blue that are just looking horrible. You know, they just really messed them up. You know, sometimes you get odd colorations, and you know, there's things that people have tried to do that haven't worked with them. But this stuff, it just sucked that blue right up, so that was great. In fact, it worked so well, I went ahead and did, you know, it had the rack marks on the barrel. I went and did them too. You know, I'm not getting carried away and doing the whole gun, but to touch those up, it worked really well. But I can live with little idiot marks. You know, like when I sanded the stock down here, now here is an idiot mark that I left in. You know, I wasn't going to get aggressive on it. Just enough to rough it up and take out, you know, the worst of them. So that worked out just fine. I got that just where I want it, and I got it tarred, so that's ready to go. Just got to put that front ramp in and sort out what height sight I need to fit with that ramp. Then I have to choose. We'll go semi-buckhorn, flat top, full buckhorn. Now, the funny thing is, you know, most of mine I run a semi-buckhorn on, and that's what I'm happy with. You know, I could put the Williams back on, but like I say, I've always found them to be a big chunk of metal. Plus, not that easy to adjust on the move, kind of. I like, these are a little more flexible to me. But the funny part, you know, people hate full buckhorns because they don't understand how they work. Because actually, the distance that it sits from the sight, if you look at it, the field of view is exactly the same as it is with the Williams aperture sight. But people don't understand that. But then you have the option of, for, you know, you set it for your fine adjustment for close range. Mid-range, you use it like a peep sight. Then for long range, you pull it up right in between the tips of the horn. But it kind of went out of favor. Like I said, this is what I use on most of them, it's a semi-buckhorn. But no, don't knock the camera. Cat, get out of here. Junior, you don't need to be in the camera. And I just know they're going to hit that tripod. Yeah, get out of here. Yeah, I hurt his feelings. And somebody asked about factory Remington, you know, if there was factory 35, and there is that lever evolution crap, but Remington makes the ammunition for them, that 200 grain Core-Lock bullet. You know, there's nothing wrong with them except they're outrageously priced. You know, a box like this is close to $40. But they are available. And it's supposed to be, you know, very good. But I can load these cheaper. And now that I'm kind of getting into finishing touches on this thing here, I'll talk about brass. I had a call the other day from Buffalo Arms. And I had, long ago, I ordered some 351 brass. I ordered 200, they sent 111, so 89 were back ordered. And he called me up and said, oh, we can send out your 89. I thought, great. You know, and I thought, well, then I can tell people that's available again. And then I got chatting with him and asked him, well, how much brass did you get from Jameson then? Because I hadn't seen them putting out brass any other locations, and I keep my eyes open. I said, oh, we haven't got anything from them yet. Well, then I got to wondering, okay, where did this brass turn up from? Well, then he said, well, you know, I better look. Well, I got a little carried away with a knife and I cut, and I didn't know he was sending a catalog. So he said, well, I better go and check. So he went and checked. Yeah, turns out they actually didn't have any. Well, I'd already paid for them. So that got to be a problem. So then he said, well, you know, I told him, okay, you got 35 Remington. Well, yeah, they had the 135 Remington. So we worked out a deal and he sent me 100 of them. And I still have my 351 on back order. Like I say, this is fine brass, and I've been using this. I've got no complaints about it because it is the standard length. But I thought, you know, I was all enthused because I thought, oh boy, I can tell people that 351 is on the market again. Nope, it's not. But eventually, and he will let me know when. Well, it's good to have their catalog. But good people to deal with. They just had a little mix-up in their inventory thing. But I am in business now. And these, with the shipping, about $40 for a box. I think that's what they sell for locally too. If you can find them. You know, I couldn't find these locally, but I bought 308 locally. Hornery stuff, and that's what it sells for. So I can load up a bunch and make my final decisions on what I want to do with this. One other thing I have to do, you know, this waffle top thing, now once it's been drilled, you know, there's no going back from that. But I do have a set of the regular blanks that go in for regular Marlin ones. You know, these little screws that just fill in them dummy holes. Well, whatever they drilled these for is slightly smaller, so I have to tap these holes a little bigger to put the Marlin screws in, but then I can at least close these holes up, because they're kind of in a bad spot. You know, you can get dirt or water in there, and it's right on top of the bolt. I guess it'd be handy for oiling the bolt, but that's about all. But that's where I'm at with this, and I think I'll maybe load some up. After I get those screws short for that sight ramp. So it's a tricky deal, but it can be done.